So today I'm really excited to share with you one-point perspective. It can be a little intimidating, but it's not that hard. You can do it. So the subject I've chosen is this lovely scene from Spain. It's a perfect one-point perspective. Absolutely perfect. And this is the one I did on location. And then over here you can see this is from New Orleans. Okay, now this is a simple one-point perspective. We're just looking at it straight on. And so you just draw your little shapes, your windows, the street, everything is just straight on. But the only thing that would be a little bit of a complicated issue is the awning. You can see that the angle keeps changing. So what you do is you try to find the point where the one point converges, and look at this, it's way up off the page here. And it's pretty much lines up with this guy. So if the awning extended over, the lines here would be absolutely straight. And then what happens is, see the little bit of an angle where it's starting to move off into, look at how steep it is here, and here, and here, and here, and here. So that would probably be the only thing that would give you a little bit of a scare. I'm going to show you a few other one-point perspectives. This is a subject I absolutely love. St. Mark's Square in Venice, and I was just there a few months ago, and I had to do one more. But here you can see I'm almost sitting right in line, and it was a rainy day, so we were sitting under the arcade. Beautiful, beautiful day. And all these umbrellas. Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. And St. Mark's is fun to draw because these the basilica top here is so they're not perfect, they're irregular. So I love that. And look at over here, this little collection. So I'll have to say this was one of the most fun drawings I think I've ever done. And the best part was just sitting there. This took quite a while, maybe a couple hours. You'll recognize this. This is also in Venice. And we sat there, and I purposely picked buildings straight on. That's one-point perspective. All you do is make the shape within the shape and just pick it straight on. It's really a fun way to draw, especially a building that's got some interesting patterns, something that's asymmetrical. And then of course I had to put in a gondola, so it said Venice. Here's another one from Venice, and both of these are wet into wet. When I painted them, they were both absolutely soaking wet. So you can see the color is just, running out, merging into the paper. And that was the whole idea, just to make it look really loose. This was from a recent trip to Spain, and my sister was along with me, and she had never painted before. We had such a good time. So I said, Marianne, we've got to pick a subject looking straight on. So we walked around, found the perfect place. And you can see here, we're just looking straight on again at these simple shapes. And we do have this one converging line here. You can see that as that converges, it's going to relate. But that was a perfect subject, and I wish I had her picture here to share with you. She did a fantastic job. Here's another lovely site. I was with a group, and we were in Cortula, Croatia, and we got invited into this backyard. And I looked around, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to paint here? There's too much. So I just kind of settled between a simple subject. Again, we're looking at one-point perspective. You can see how this would be just coming back to one point right here. And the reason I'm showing you this is because there are each building has its own one point. It's not like every building has the same point. See, this one here goes here, so all these lines are converging to this point. But see, this one here, this building is turned a different direction. So now this one is converging to a different point down here. You can see how those all lined up. So each building has its own set of points. But I thought it was still kind of fun just to come in, focus on some laundry and all the things that were in that backyard. This one here was in northern Greece. And again, one point perspective. We just settled right in front of it. And as soon as you figure out where your point is, you can start relating it to all these different shapes as they go around. It's all the same. Isn't that cool? The important thing is to try to figure out where you want this to be. I try to get it into that 1/3 position. So I tried to have more interesting things happening. Just thinking about my composition. I wanted more things to happen here, and I wanted this to be more or less a rest area. And this one was painted just with simple grays. It's very much like Spain, a lot of white buildings. So this is how we'll be finishing our painting today. This is also in Spain, just looking straight on. And because Spain is so white, every building is white, I purposely try to find things that have interlocking shapes like a tree, lots of pots of flowers. This was kind of cool. This awning was hanging down. And believe it or not, they painted one of the buildings yellow. And the front of this was green, so I couldn't resist. This is just perfect subject. And straight on, easy to do. It almost becomes like an abstract painting. Just to slip these shapes in, overlap a few, interlock a few, and you can't go wrong. This is the same subject, but as a horizontal. So I got to add another tree and just develop it a little differently. But again, I try to get the most interest happening in these thirds. And then I try to have some areas that are restful. This is the last one I'm going to show you. And this was from a recent trip to Venice. And I just found the perfect subject. I couldn't believe it. I love the way these pilings lined up. I love the way they interlocked with the window. I couldn't believe it, but this foliage came down and interlocked with the window. And of course you've got your patterns. I wanted to show how to do reflections. So it couldn't have been easier. And really the only challenge that you have here is you need to get your water line. This is your eye level. Eye level is very important. So anything below this eye level is going to have an elliptical shape with the lines going up to that point. And anything above is going to be an elliptical shape coming down to the water line. So this is about the only perspective I had to worry about, is that little line right there. So this is the subject we're going to start with. I love this. This was in Frigiliani, Spain, and it was quite a hike up here, but it was worth it. I loved this, and it's a perfect 1-point perspective. So I give everybody an eraser on a elastic, and this is one of the reasons I like to have this, because whenever you're doing a drawing of 1-point perspective, you have to figure out where the horizon line is. The horizon line is where the sky meets the earth. So in this one, we can't see it, but when we're sitting there, what we can do is project our eye level out onto the subject. So when I sat there, I could tell that my eye level was right here. So I knew that when I started this, with my eye level in that position, I knew that everything above that is coming down to that level. Here you can see it's starting to go up and up and up. So it's really, really important to find out where this is, because everything depends on this, everything. And if you don't know where your eye level is, you can be fooled. You can look at those buildings and swear those lines are going the wrong way. It's happened to me many times. So when you sit down, you say, self, where is the eye level? And that is the important thing. That's how you start. And then I just wanted to show you that I kept coming back to this different times of the day, because I knew I wouldn't have time to complete the painting on location. So I wanted to have the perfect shapes of color and shadows. So this was taken earlier in the day, and you can see how the buildings are casting an entirely different shadow than they are here, which was later in the day. And I actually like these shadows, so I'm gonna go with this. And I like the way the light is touching in here, and see the big cast shadow here, and this is pretty much all in cast shadow. So this is really going to be fun to paint. So let's get busy drawing it. So again, I'm going to start at my horizon line, which is going to be somewhere in here. And I want to just start with the straight on. What's really nice about this is when you're looking straight on, you just look for these simple shapes. So I'm looking at this, and I wish I was sitting right in front of it, but this is the best we can do here. And because nobody's ever going to know what you actually did, don't ever worry about just making things up. If you take a peek at that one behind me, it doesn't even look like the same subject. Because I often look around, if I see something I like better, I just add it. So one of the things that appeals to me is this lovely foliage. So of course I'm going to create a lot of this foliage, and I would never draw it as just a straight line. The foliage has to be drawn as these broken shapes, just to give us, and see it bumps into this line. Oh yeah. And then we're going to have flowers coming up in here. So we're going to kind of position the foliage as well as the buildings, because that's what's going to make this fun, is the foliage. So there's kind of like a double row of foliage, these little white flowers, and then this massive bougainvillea here, which is coming way down here somewhere. So now we need to think about where are we going to position this, the bottom here. And then this is going to come forward with more foliage. Oh, I love this. Lots of foliage in here. And I have to get it in because, see, I love the cast shadows. So I have to have whatever it is in here so I can cast those shadows. Then I'm going to put this on in a pot. And I'm going to put the pot, let's put it on some kind of a support. So this is a step. I love steps. The reason I love steps is you get the cast shadow, you get the lighter shadow, and then you get the sun. So you get all these patterns to play with. First of all, we just design the shapes. Now this needs to be straight. I gotta watch what I'm doing here. Straighten that up a bit. Now, I never mind doing erasing. And then we've got some other positions here coming up, street going back. See, I already have my pot a little tight. Because it's just foliage, I never mind a few erasures. So let's build that pot over here, make it a little bigger, add some foliage coming down. Now we're cooking. This is much better. And then over here, we've got this crazy assortment of buildings. I love this. It's all in shadow. So all we have to do is draw them in very simply. This is another building here, going up at an angle. And then we've got this long building here. Now, whenever you have a parallel line coming down like this, ew, nothing more boring than a parallel line with the edge of your paper. And see, these should be exactly the same. Don't tip them either way. All the lines in your perspective, except for converging lines going back to that point, all the lines that are straight on need to be straight. So this has to be straight. And it goes maybe, got another step in here. This comes down just a little bit now. So now we're ready to think about these lines coming down. So there's my point, my one point. So see, this line's going to be really steep. And then this one is going to be, it actually comes in a little bit. That's where that one is. And this one See, it's starting to go up like this. And then over here, we're going to have a shape that goes across, and this goes off. Now watch this. See, just like that. Love it. And then this is just going to come forward and form some various steps here. Go up a little bit and back. And once again, I'm going to show you something. See how this building is right on with our perspective. All the way, everything. But look at it, doesn't work for this building. See? This building is at a different angle than this building. This one is in line, this one got turned. And then this one's back in line again. See how this one's back in line again. So when we do this, we're going to have a building with a different one-point perspective, but basically everything here is one-point perspective. So now we're just going to start breaking these shapes up. We've got these lines coming down. And remember I was talking about how this becomes very boring. One parallel line next to the edge of the paper. So we really need to add this. So again, we have to decide where do we want to put it. Maybe about here, somewhere in here. And then it goes off the paper on this one, but I'm just going to make it a little bit shorter because I don't like these really steep looking perspective shapes. I try to avoid them. And then it's broken up in the middle too. And see, even that has a line, an angle. So if this were to be right here, it would be straight. And then it goes up even steeper, and then this one is going up to the horizon. So now we've got some broken shapes here. It's going to be a lot more interesting. We'll figure that out. It's covering a window. And again, we've got some lovely foliage here. So let's build another pot here. And this is going to be converging up here, very steep. Remember now, this is our one point right there. So anytime I need help, I just go over there. So we've got a pot sitting here. In the pot are some little flowers coming up. I'll probably make them bigger and make them into geraniums because I like the color. And then there's another pot here, and this one's important because you can see the cast shadow is from this, I think. Yeah. So we need to make that fun one that comes up, goes all over the place. And then I frequently don't go into too much detail. If I've got a chance to put in a lot of foliage and some beautiful darks like that, opportunity for what I call a taint area. Taint an entryway, taint a step, it's just foliage. So we're just gonna, this is going to be a lot of foliage in here. And you can see back here, that's kind of what I did. This isn't actually the way it was. I decided to open the gate just to give it a little, just a little more interest. And you can see I never did put that parallel line here. And I am at a little different, I moved over when I drew this. So it's not exactly the same picture. Okay, so now we've got more foliage coming in here. Now we're ready for this side. Okay, now we're going to look at this positioning, this doorway. It's across from this, and it's between, well, let's see, it's approximately here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, you know, just do it. So we're going to put it in here. And this one, thankfully, is coming from our source here. So see, that's going to be really, really steep. coming way, just like that, way, whoa, very steep. And we've got a step in there. And then that goes back straight. And then we've got the top of the doorway. So how far up should we go? It's kind of across from this. I'll drop this down a bit. It's a little higher than that. There we go. So it's approximately in here. You can see it's still going up to the horizon. Now, if I were going to add people in this picture, I would have to make them approximately this tall. And so doorways are what determine how big your people are. So if you put a person in here, they would be about that big. That's kind of nice. Now, as we go back, remember this one's at a different angle. So about halfway here, we've got another step, another doorway going up. And coming down, this one we're just going to make it up. And see, now if I had a person standing here, that person would only be that big. Whereas here they would be that big. So doorways are great. They give you a scale. And then you can put the people in. We have another lesson coming up where you put people in your picture. We're not going to worry about people on this one. We got enough to worry about. Okay, now this is another building. So we have to go up. Up, 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 up. And way up here, it's going to go off the page. So if we want to double check now, there's one line, there's another line. Oh, I love stuff like this. These are the plumbing and the wiring. And a lot of people leave it out, but I don't. I like it. And then I've got this window, which gets pretty steep up here. And then we've got the roof line. So wasn't that fun? And I'm just going to put one window in. There's only room for one. I don't put everything in. And then we're going to see the thickness of the building. And then this is going to be a lovely dark area here. Oh yeah. And I love this stuff. This stuff has several. And then the fun stuff, it's got stuff hanging down. Oh my gosh, I love this. Then it drizzles down to this building, which has its own perspective. So this building, we're just going to kind of guess. We're going to put it in. It's kind of in with the foliage here. And how far do we want to go? I usually use this as a gauge. So from this position, goes down, and then it comes out about here, and then it goes down. So see, that's pretty good, just close enough. And that's where you can actually see this side of the building too. So we have another thin line coming down here, meeting at the sidewalk, and that's where there's another step. And that goes back. Oh my, this is fun. Now one thing I didn't do is to get that cute little window in. I might just decide to do that. I'll start it about here, go up to here. So again, I would just take and rough it in. Nice. It's just a hole in the wall. And we do need it because I want to make that pot. See, I want to put that pot there because I like the shadow. And I like the way it breaks up the line. See, that foliage goes and breaks that line up. Now the last of these buildings are actually following this perspective. So all we have to do is come in here with a few more shapes of buildings, and I'm not going to put in all of those dark shapes or awnings, too much. But one thing I am going to do is I'm going to put this lovely light in here. I really like this light. So I'm going to decide where am I going to position that light. It's kind of across from that. It's in the 1/3, which I love. And it would just come straight out. And you can see these things are always ornate. This is a lot more fun to draw with a pen. But we'll do it with a pencil. And they just sort of spiral around. Touch the top, come around, touch the bottom. Then they just have a few more little loop-de-loops in here. And then the good part. And I always like to have these kind of, I like the way it's interlocking with the edge of these roof lines here. So it's going to come up, straight on. We're going to see a little bit of this side. And then this is pretty close to our eye level, but it's still going up. And you see how we have to go up and then straight across. And then I'm going to just remove this line. And we're going to come in. And it's got a cute little knob up here. Can't beat that. So now we got a cute little light. Sometimes when I have a light like this, and I'll decide to do it as a night scene. Oh, this is so fun. And you would start, you've seen me do it now on several lessons. I would start with a triad of light using primary colors, starting with my yellows, going into my reds, going into my blues, and I'd put that down first, and then I'd paint the rest of the picture. And you would build in that light, and you could make it a night scene. So I'm going to go ahead now and do just some final perfection, fixing it up. And when I come back, we're going to paint it. Well, I'm back. I did add a few more lines. I wanted to make it just a little bit darker because this is available, as you know, as a kit. So hopefully some of you are painting along with me. Now, one of the really, really important things I want to emphasize is when you see these cast shadows, do not draw them in with a pencil line. Or if you're drawing in pen, which you could go over these lines with pen if you wanted to, never, never draw in any shadows with a line, with any kind of line. Just wing it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start out by putting in all these cast shadows, and then we're going to do the foliage, and probably some kind of a sky, and it's really going to be fun. I love these white buildings. Another thing I want to mention, I know I did say you could draw over it with a pen, but I just want to show you my little bias. One of the things I learned after many years of painting on location, when you're doing white buildings, they really look better drawn in pencil and just painted with these beautiful shadows. But this was a few years back, 2014, a couple years. So see, I've learned my lesson in the last couple years. We're going to start by mixing a gray. And the easiest way to mix a gray is to make a puddle of Cobalt Blue and its complement, Winsor Orange. These two colors are perfect. I know a lot of times when I'm doing this in class, people will say, oh, I don't have Winsor Orange, I'll just use this orange. It looks the same. Unfortunately, it doesn't work the same. So it is important that you start with these two colors. And if you are going to use another combination, you'll just have to work out, just test it. So I can go between a warm gray and a cool gray. And a lot of times the grays that are directly cast on a sunny side, I go a little bit on the warm side. So one of the first things I want to do is put this, pretty much this side, yeah, that doesn't look too good. Put this side of the building in shadow. but you have to paint around subjects like this. And then this shadow comes down to approximately here. So I'm just going to go across. This whole thing is in shadow. And this side is a little bit darker. So I'm going to pull it right up to that edge. And of course these are in shadow. We'll have to go darker, but for now we're just going to put those in. And then you can see where these lines here are casting a shadow. This is fun. I love stuff like this. So those kind of lines you can just make up. And it's hard to believe, but that beautiful shadow there. We've got to do that now. Now, this one I'm going to make a little bit lighter. So you can see I'm putting some more water in it. And I'm going to come across here. And we're just going to make it up. Comes down to about here. And meanders down here to the top of this. And this whole side is including this is in shadow. You see it's getting a little cooler. I better have just a little bit more warm. So we're just going to come down and capture for now. And I've got to get to this upper part here. So that's that casting, that Eve is casting this fun shadow. And there's a few little clips there. This is also casting a neat shadow, starting about here, coming down. That's even a little darker. All right. And of course this whole area here is going to be in shadow. So you can see sometimes I'm cooler, sometimes I'm warmer. I like it either way. I'll charge in a little more orange here. I don't want to get too flat. I like to do that, especially in a doorway. We'll just charge a little color in. Now I'm looking at this. This entire thing is gray. And starting here, there's a cast shadow coming down. It's got kind of a scallop because of that. So we're just going to finish this whole corner with that. And again, I'm just going to charge in a little blue over here. So that doesn't have to be perfect. Now there's a lovely cast shadow under here. I don't know where all that's coming from, but we're going to put it in. And this will be shadowed. And then you can see there's a cast shadow coming down from this. So again, we're going to just move this shadow here. We're going to come right down and go up to the edge of this. Now all of these are going to be in shadow. You can always go over them again. So I kind of like to get that first cast shadow in there. And all of these buildings here are going to be in shadow. Pretty much down to my foliage. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in. And this is in shadow too. Well, that was fun. That was a great start. We're going to have some shadows down here. Now you'll notice I did draw in 2 more windows, but I didn't draw in any more doorways and stuff down here. So I'm just going to let that be sunny. Now, one of the things I want you to notice is these shadows are not anywhere near as dark as the cast shadows here. They're much lighter. And see how this side of the building is in shadow, but it's a lighter shadow than that shadow next to it. So now that this one is dry, I'm just going to come in and do this one lighter. All the way down. And now I need to get some darker shadows. So more color. And so now we're going to have the front of these steps. They're going to be much darker. Top of this step is much darker. There's a cast shadow here. This is going to be darker. This is actually quite a bit darker. And then this back area here is darker. And I really enjoy this. This is so much fun. And these are darker, about halfway. This one's just a little bit darker here, darker on the bottom. And now I'm starting to enjoy, there's some broken shapes finally. Yay. So now I'm just going to throw some shapes on here. And I have to like wherever they land. So I'm just going to come in and make this look like some of the foliage shapes. And they can get a little bit darker. We're going to have to mix some more here. They can be just a little bit darker. They come all the way down. Now the real fun is going to be these really dark shapes here. So I'm going to come in and mix another whole big batch Cobalt and Winsor Orange, and let's mix it much darker this time, a little bit cooler. And now comes the fun. See, these are going to be cast shadows coming out here onto the street, and what I like is they're little broken shapes because they're from the foliage. So we're just going to take and break up those shapes. Same combination, just more paint, less water. It's going to follow this sidewalk, real crisp, and then broken. Yes, oh, that was fun. And now we have another really dark shape coming across here. And the fun thing is, this is actually all kinds of rough concrete, little pebbles. So I'm just going to show some of those broken shapes right off the bat. Just with my finger, I'll pick up some of this. Might even stick it in here. So those are some of those little dark pebbly shapes around. And this is exciting. There's a big shape, a big cast shadow coming out here. It's quite dark. So let's go for it. And it's going to go up to this edge. Now I didn't draw that in. I figured we didn't need it. So we got to have a few little spots here, which I love to run my brush through and pick them up, lighten them up a bit. Now this entire side is in shadow. So I'm going to continue with this dark cast shadow, and then I'm going to do this whole big shadow. So right here we've got a really dark, beautiful cast shadow from this foliage. And it's going every direction. So just make it up. Might charge a little blue, pure blue into that. And the pot here is in a very dark shadow. I'm just going to go ahead and paint that dark. Sometimes you'll get a little bounced light, so I'll just pull back a little bit of light bouncing off the other side here. So now we are ready to throw this entire area into a shadow. So I need a big shadow. I'm going to take all of my paint here, add water to it, and make one very large shadowy color. Cool it up a little bit, add a little more blue to it. And one of the things I want to do is look very carefully. Now the only white left is a little edge up here. And of course some of the whites from the foliage, and we're not going to paint that. So I'm just going to start right now coming in. Oh, a little more water, I think. First thing we're going to do is just come in here and get this really gray. The whole thing is gray. And we go around the foliage, because when you're painting yellow greens you want to be doing that on white paper, not on gray. This is where being a watercolor artist is really challenging. And this is all going to be pretty much foliage in here, so that's enough. And this is all gray, except where the foliage is. Same here. This is all gray. So we'll just wipe it out in one big swoop here. And actually this, if you look, this gray is a little darker than this gray. So we should really let this dry, and then we'll come back and make this gray a little bit lighter. It's all gray down here too. I don't know why this is so much fun. There's only going to be a limited amount of white of the paper left. There, you can see already the difference. Isn't that fun? And I think we should throw some of this lovely gray. It's lighter than that last batch. I think we need just a little bit of gray coming out here. Because this is a separate step away from this. So we'll just make this a little bit grayer. And whenever you're making lines, always remember anything in landscape is horizontal. It's always horizontal. There's a few broken shapes down here. Wet my brush, touch it here, and just with horizontal shapes, we'll just pull that across. So now our whitest white at this point is that little point right here, and of course the face of the building here. And now we can go back and do second layers. See, we can do an additional cast shadow here. Under here. We can do an additional cast shadow up here. We can go darker on this inside. So this is, again, a layered style of working. You do layer after layer after layer. Down here, this doorway needs to be darker. And it dries so quickly, especially when you're sitting outside. Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable how quickly it dries. It's darker under here. This pot's going to be dark. So now I'm just going to add more water to this and do this whole front, and we're ready to let this dry and come back and do the bougainvillea. Oh boy. In fact, I might just jump right into the bougainvillea without drying it, because one of the things, I'm going to throw the paint. And I love it when you throw the paint and it kind of bleeds into this. Let me show you. See, when I did this one here, you can see where it bled into that background. It bounced over here, which I like it because then it looks like reflected lights. So I think we're just going to go right for it. I'm going to get out my throwing brush. This is a very inexpensive Oriental brush made out of squirrel hair. And we're just going to clean this up and jump into those beautiful reds. And the brightest red on my palette is Scarlet Lake. So we're just going to get a batch of that going. And I know that some of you would be a lot more comfortable just coming in like this and touching it where you want it. That's fine too, no problem. In fact, I like to do that myself. So some of these areas that I actually drew the shapes, you might just want to come in and get some of those shapes. Over here there's a couple red flowers. And then up here there's a number of them, and I just like to let her rip. Now we're going to have some areas we didn't plan on, like that. I'm just gonna, it's okay. And then up here, I might start next to the building, and then as I come out, I'll just simply throw it. Now, if you're having trouble with it throwing, what I do is if I get too many little spots, I dip this in water and I do one hit, and then when I come back I get bigger shapes. I love that. So if you notice the shapes are getting small, see they're kind of small, one dip in water, one tap, and bingo. And when I throw the paint like this, I hold the brush about halfway and load it up, and I never tap it onto another finger. I put my hand out of the way. It's all done, just freehand like this. How fun is that? Whoa. I'm going to add a few red flowers over here too. Now we need to get some variety. I'm going to come over here to the pinkier color. This is some Quinacrodone Rose. And we'll come in and do a little bit of the rose color. It was a good year for bougainvillea. My goodness, look at that. Now I'm not getting much reflected light, so we might have to just add that in. You never know what's going to happen when you do this. Try not to get too straight. See, I'm trying to bump out of here like a renegade, some higher, some lower, trying to definitely get a variety going here. Next thing I want to do is get a start on some of the greens. So using, first of all, some Quin Gold with Antwerp Blue. This is a beautiful combination. Very olivey. I love the color. So I'm just going to come in and take a little risk here doing it while that red is so wet. But I just want to get a little bit of green going. I'm missing some variety in color here. So again, I just always love to throw it a little bit. And I think I'm going to throw in some pure yellow greens. So just some yellow with that little bit. Get some nice yellow greens going here. Pick it up, tap it. So what we're going to do is work from light to dark. And I'm going to get a little more yellow in here, closer to the sun area. So I'm doing the higher colors here in yellow greens. And so far they're hanging in there pretty good, because everything's soaking wet. And then even here, you can see where the sun is touching these. They're very yellow green. So we're just going to come in and paint some of these very yellow green because the sun is touching them. Over here, the sun is touching some of these. So we're going to put in some nice yellow greens here too. And what's really going to be fun is when we come in with these darks later. So we want to build up our yellow greens and our midtones, a few down here too. And then we'll come back with our darks. Now remember, if you're throwing the paint and you get the spots too small, just do this. One dip in water, one tap, and then just throw that additional water. One dip, one tap, and you get bigger shapes. And we like those bigger shapes. So we're going to have to dry this now, and I'll be back. Well, it's all dry now. So it'll make it a lot easier to come in with our darks. And remember our color chart. Now I want to think about almost black. And I also want to do this very, very dark green with the Winsor Orange and Antwerp Blue. So I'll obviously mix that. And then I need a really strong black. And I usually go for this transparent one. So I think I'll do this one. So I'm going to pre-mix those colors right now. Here we have Alizarin Crimson. And I always do my color mixing in a puddle, as you'll notice. So we'll get our puddles going. That's the Alizarin Crimson. This is the Phthalo Green. See, we're getting invaded here. We'll just take care of that. Little Phthalo Green. These two together are going to give us a lovely black. And see, there is a lot of black in here. So we're going to want to start thinking about, for example, this lovely light. So we'll just paint in some of those darks. And the sides. The fun thing is if I do this with a pen, I don't really have to paint these. but no pen lines here, so now I have to do it. And it feels good to get some nice strong darks in here now. So we'll just go over these shapes. Oh, good. And then we also have, there's always a few dark lines like in the roof line. And of course this is very black. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in some of this black. But wherever there's foliage going over the front of it, we paint around it. And then we do have these railings, these bars here. And I'm going to see what happens if I paint in between the bars. I think I'm going to like it. Because we did put that wash of gray. So if we come, now just do the blacks in the background, painting around the foliage. I'm going to have to paint more foliage pretty soon, but I'm just getting anxious to try some of this. And I want to come down here and really pop out a strong, strong dark shape. Oh, it's exciting. What I'm thinking about doing now is just playing a little bit with some of these patterns, and then here connecting this as a dark rail. Yeah, that's nice, getting a little reversal going there. And this actually comes down further, but you know what? You can make things up. You can do whatever you want to. You've got the brush in your hand. This decision is yours. Another reversal. That's fun. And over here, these are really dark. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to let that dry so I don't touch it. But in the meantime, we're going to look for a few more darks here. I'm not sure what this is here, but I like it. So I'm just going to put a strong dark coming down here and stopping by the foliage. Now I'm going to mix my really dark green. And this is going to be Quinacrodone Burnt Orange and Antwerp Blue. You can tell which colors I use a lot of because in a short time they're dug right out. There we go. Oh, that's a beautiful dark green. And see, this is going to basically be this plant. So I'm going to start pulling in some of that beautiful, beautiful dark green in here. It's breaking out. Going around the plant. Try not to get them all in a row. Every which way. And we're going to pull it in really, really dark here. Love it. And see, save as many as those little whites as you can. They're really important. We need some of these greens coming through here. connecting to our foliage. There's some more little stringy things here. Just paint those in. Now we have some beautiful darks up here. We're just going to go for it. And as we paint around our flowers, they're going to pop out, because you can see we have some white flowers here. Beautiful. We'll save as many of those white flowers as we can. Little broken shapes. This is just a little number 6 brush. Done the whole thing practically with this little number 6 brush. And you can see the edge of this building is defined by these darks. So I'm going to start defining the edge of this building with the foliage. And I'm trying not to fill in everything. I'm trying to save as many of these little white shapes as I can. And little green shapes. This is fun. Now I usually throw the paint. I think I might do a little bit of that. I have to get it more fluid. And I like to throw some in. It's a different look than when you paint it. So just by throwing some of this in, we're going to get some more little shapes we didn't expect. I really don't want all these. And then up here I'm going to come in and just do a few dark shapes. Again, I want to define the top of this building. Do it with these strong darks. I need to make my mixture stronger here. Oh, it's feeling good now. I can see this building coming to life. Isn't that nice? So we're going to keep it really dark, really strong. I'll come in later and get all my renegades. Right now what I'm trying to do is just put the structure into it. And a little, I just love this. We still need some of these that you just throw. Now back here, these ones that I painted as a light yellow green, I'm just going to paint around them now. So we can get this massive dark shape going. And again, it's defining another building shape. I don't know what it is. We'll just see what we can do. There's something sticking out too. I think I'll put that in. There. There, that's starting to come together. So now we're going to have some, about halfway here is that strong dark crosses over, little broken shapes, and then it connects to this side. So I'm going to stop for a minute now, and I'm going to paint in some colorful pots. I just want to see some more color in here. So we're going to take some Quinacrodone Burnt Orange. You can see I painted the pots blue. The complement of blue is orange. So I'm going to put this orange over the blue. Still going to keep it in shadow, but now we're going to have an orange pot. Yes, that feels good. Got another one here with some flowers over the front. It's just nice to get some more color in here. Another pot back here. Got another pot over here. I don't see any more pots. But that helps. Good. Now this time I'm going to come in with my smaller script brush. You can see it's shorter than a rigger, but it's thinner than a round brush. So with this rigger now I can come in and get some of these lovely renegades and some of these little breakout flowers. Very important. Always got to have some renegades. Whatever you do, don't make it straight. Any way you can break it up, do it. So we'll just have this nice little dark shape coming in, dropping way down. And then let's have one more renegade coming up here. Another one here. Can do a few more of these grassy things. And then out here there's going to be all kinds of these little interesting broken shapes. Every now and then a renegade coming out. Same down here. I even drew in some of these shapes for you. And this is when it's finally going to feel like it's coming together, when you can do these little breakouts. Now all these little holes you're saving, you can come in later and add even more reds. That's what I like to do. Just pop in some really strong reds. In here we need to get some more of these dark, dark, dark. This is my dark green. Isn't that amazing? So try to leave a lot of those whites, because you can always kill them later, but for now we want a lot of them. Now we still need to make this feel way darker here. And in here too. I like the way that defines the edge of the building here. So we'll just come in here with this strong dark. And I think what I'll do is just soften this edge with a little water. Just let that edge kind of bleed over. Because this is really in shadow. We have to remember that. When things are in shadow, they're much... See, we can even make this part a little bit darker. Fun. Well, I'm ready to come in now with some more color. I'm going to add a little bit of orange in some of these flowers. This is my Winsor Orange. It almost looks like an opaque color, but it isn't. It's totally transparent. And see, this is why it's so nice to leave all those holes. I like to exaggerate the flowers. Bigger, make them bigger. I'm going to come back with my favorite, Scarlet Lake. Brightest color on my palette. Now we're really going to go for it. Going to push those flowers really big and bright. Oh wow, what a difference that's making. That feels really good. And there's some lovely flowers over here too, so we'll push those too. And here, been neglecting this poor guy. And I shouldn't, because that's in my foreground. You can put a lot more detail in that. Like I say, it was a good year for flowers. Now what I really want to do is show a little bit of reflected light. I have, this is the painting I did on location, and what I decided to do here was to make the shadows darker against the light sky. And on this one, my shadows are much paler. I might decide to come in with a blue sky, and I might darken a few of these shadows, but I most definitely want to do a little bit of reflected light on the building. So some of these reds. So I'm just going to wet this building here. You can see once everything's dry, you can wet right over it, no problem. And I'm just going to throw a little bit of this color. I meant to just throw the red. I better clean my brush up here. Let's try that again. So I'm just going to throw in some of this pinky color and just let it kind of bounce around in the shadow here. Because I really want to get the feeling like there's some reflected light on these white walls. That feels good. And I think I might do the same up here. That one I painted on location, this just did it by itself. And that's because I was working so much wetter. But see how nice that is, just to have a little bit of that color bounced in there? I happen to like it a lot. I might throw some over here too. And where else could I throw a little? Maybe down here on the sidewalk. Just a little bit of warm. Not only that, it feels good for the painting. It feels good to warm up a bit. Even in here, this is really, really white. I love it though when we can have the white of the paper in our final picture. It's one of my goals, to always have a little bit of the white of the paper. So now it's just a matter of some final putzing, and we'll be done. Turn this on its side because I didn't have the control I needed the other way. So I'm just going to add this in, and I just want it to be not anything more than little dark shapes They're not going to be perfect. We don't like perfection. That's one of my favorite things to say. So we're just going to add these bars. This is one of those things you always want to get your shadows in the background first, and then do this as the last thing. Paint that out to the edge. There. Then sometimes while that's wet, I'll just charge in some pure color, just for a little variety. Here's a little pure red. There's a little pure green. I think we've come to the end, and I've been really rehashing what should I do with that sky. Usually when I paint white buildings, I just love to power in a really blue sky, and you really see a lot of blue skies in Spain. But I love the white sky in that, and the fact that these buildings are so gray. I think if I put a blue sky in there, they're going to be equal value. I'm going to lose more than I'm going to gain. So I think what I'll probably do is just to simply darken these up a little bit so that they're really a nice contrast to that blue sky, to that white sky. And these are working pretty well. And I do like the white sky. So we're gonna leave it at that. And meanwhile, I want to thank all of you who joined me for the 6 months. And I hope you'll come back again. And those of you who are on for a whole year, next week we're going to be doing 2-point perspective. Till then.